Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to give everyone just a couple more minutes to hop on as we see people joining our presentation. The numbers are just rolling up there. I appreciate everybody's patience as everybody is able to get into the webinar today. Okay, we're about a minute in, so some others may join us as we go, but we need to get started right on time. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kelly Bufink, and I would like to welcome you to Strip Matter Wealth Smart Money webinar series. So thank you for joining us today. Our presentation today is titled Understanding Alzheimer's and Dementia, and is presented by Shelly Young, who's with the Alzheimer's Association here in North Central Texas in the chapter up here. Now, for those of you who do not know us, we are Strip Matter Wealth Management Group. We are a registered independent advisor located in downtown Fort Worth. We specialize in investment management, financial planning, estate planning, and real estate investing. We've been in business since 2007 and serve clients throughout the United States. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. All of you have access to the chat feature, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to type those in, and we'll be happy to answer those for you. Also, we'll be sending out a replay of today's webinar via email, so if you missed something, don't panic. You'll have the ability to go back and watch this again, and you're welcome to please forward this presentation or any of our presentations to your friends and family if you think it would be beneficial for them. Now, today's webinar is meant to be purely educational, and it's not meant to be any tax or legal advice. So please always contact your licensed professional before taking action on any information in any presentation. And for more information, including our key disclosures, you can visit our website and find them there at stripmatterwealth.com. Now, to share a little bit, this is our biography on our top advisors here at Strip Matter Wealth. You have Josh Strip Matter, who is the CEO and owner, and he started this company back in 2007. Before that, he was an advisor with the Ameriprise. He has a degree in finance from UT Arlington and currently holds his CFP and CRC, which is a certified retirement counselor. And he specializes in investment strategies, helping clients grow and protect their wealth, and focusing on business owners to plan and achieve their business goals. And I'm Kelly. I joined the team back in 2018, actually. I am a graduate from the University of Maryland, University College. I am an Army wife, so I have multiple universities behind me. I'm married for 30 years. And I have been in this industry since 2001. So not only have I had experience in helping current clients in today's world, navigating the steps of going to retirement, but also helping families get started and navigating all of the VA and government assistance and benefits there. And then Corey Moravitz, he joined the team in 2020. And he is a grad from Texas Tech University. He has a degree in financial planning and sports management, and his specialty is investment management and analysis. Now, our guest speaker today is Miss Shelly Young. She is the program manager for the Alzheimer's Association North Texas chapter, where she served for 17 years. She has a master's of science in gerontology from Abilene Christian University and has worked with seniors for over 25 years. Alzheimer's and dementia is particularly close to her heart, as her mother suffered from Alzheimer's disease for over 10 years, and her father suffered from Lewy body dementia for 6 years. It's also close to my heart too, guys, because it runs on both sides of my family. So please let either of us know if you have questions as we go through things. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Shelly.
Great. Well, Kelly, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you. And I think this type of program is really a perfect fit because one of the things that we preach to our clients is that early planning and making decisions now while a person is still able to do that and do that with confidence is so important. So we just appreciate this. And feel like this is a perfect way to go. So Kelly, can you confirm for me that everyone is seeing my slides? Right. Um, well, I am just going to jump right in then. So I am going to talk to you today about understanding Alzheimer's and dementia. One of the most commonly asked questions that I get when I'm doing programs in the community is what is the difference in Alzheimer's and dementia? And so hopefully I can give you some good information and help to clarify that. So we will define dementia today. We'll also talk about warning signs of Alzheimer's specifically. I'd like to cover just a little bit of information on the new treatments that are now on the market, and then also discuss healthy habits and things that we believe can either help delay cognitive decline and possibly even help us prevent that cognitive decline and dementia. So the mission of the Alzheimer's Association, we have actually been in existence since 1980, and our mission statement, as you can imagine, has been updated a few times. So the Alzheimer's Association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing care and support. And so I'm actually going to touch on really all aspects of the mission statement today as I'm chatting with you. And I certainly do encourage questions as well. So feel free to drop those in the chat. First, I'd like to just kind of make the case, like why do we even need to talk about this? What's the big deal? Well, the most recent facts and figures from the Alzheimer's Association show that nearly 7 million people in the US are currently living with Alzheimer's disease. And we know that there are over 11 million unpaid caregivers for people living with Alzheimer's and other dementias as well. Um, Another statistic that I think is really valuable and really eye-opening for folks too is that Alzheimer's disease actually kills more people each year than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. So this is something that has a dramatic impact on families, on individuals, and on our healthcare system. It is considered the most costly disease in the US. And part of that's because people who have Alzheimer's and related dementias can live for a very long time. But I like to show this photo because this is my why. This is my reason why I get up every day and do the things that I do. So this is mom and dad, also known as Mama and Papa, also known as Ed and Carolyn. So my folks were active members of the community, very involved in their church, and just really wonderful, giving people. And in this photograph, my mom had already been on her Alzheimer's journey for about 8 years. So she was well into truly the late stages of her Alzheimer's disease. But I also like this photo because my dad was living independently at the time this photo was taken. He was still driving, living in his own apartment, active in church and doing the things that he wanted to do. But he actually had those dementia changes that had already started occurring in his brain, and we just had not seen them manifest yet. So again, the most commonly asked question that I get is actually, what's the difference in Alzheimer's and dementia? And so I think this graphic is really helpful for folks to understand a little better. So there are different things that can cause a person to have dementia. We know that there are even some things that mimic dementia that are not, that are very treatable. And so dementia is just this kind of a global or umbrella term that refers to cognitive loss. People who are experiencing cognitive loss will often have memory loss. They will have challenges with thinking and planning and problem solving and even rationalizing. And so it can be very problematic for a person to have dementia because it impacts really all aspects of their lives. And then as the dementia progresses, it will start to impact a person's behavior. And so we'll dive into that a little more deeply in a minute. But again, dementia is this umbrella term that refers to cognitive loss that is severe enough to interfere with daily life. So what causes dementia? Well, there are multiple different diseases or conditions that cause dementia. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause or type of dementia. And so the stats will vary on this a bit, but I think right now, physicians and researchers still say that about 70% of people who have dementia of the Alzheimer's type. But it's also possible for individuals to have vascular dementia, which is caused by strokes. So folks who have either had a massive stroke or what is commonly referred to as mini strokes or TIAs can often also develop dementia. There is a type called Lewy body dementia, and Lewy body, some of the hallmarks of that are hallucinations and difficulty with movement. And now Lewy body is actually lumped together with Parkinson's disease, and it appears that the pathology is similar. Lewy body is the type of dementia that Robin Williams had, and it came out after he chose to end his life, that's what he was dealing with. And then frontotemporal dementia is another one that we hear about in the news some right now, because that is a type of dementia that Bruce Willis, the actor Bruce Willis, has. And that one tends to impact the frontal lobes of the brain. And so people with frontotemporal may not have at first the memory loss that we see in Alzheimer's, but they may have difficulty with reasoning and making good decisions. And then a lot of people with the frontotemporal will also have some real challenges with speech and getting their words out and communication. I also want to draw your attention to the last bullet there, that asterisk that says mixed dementia. And it is fairly common that people with dementia actually can have more than one type of dementia at the same time. An example of that is folks who have the pathology in their brain related to Alzheimer's disease, but those individuals can also have strokes. And so you may see multiple dementias, and that's important more, I think, for physicians to know and to tease out. I will say too, over time, that all the dementias will start to really look a lot alike, and you'll see quite a few features that overlap with the different dementias. And so we can tease that out a little bit more as we move further in. So let's talk for a minute about Alzheimer's specifically. Alzheimer's, it has been around. It was actually discovered for the first time in 1906 by a German physician. But if you look back in history, you can actually identify people long before 1906 who had dementia. We just really didn't have a name for it, didn't know what to call it, didn't know what to do with it. So Alzheimer's has been on our radar for more than 100 years. And these are some of the common symptoms of a person who is living with Alzheimer's dementia. And I think this slide is so important because it helps us to understand that it's more than memory loss. You know, if I were to ask right now for a show of hands for people who thought, you know, memory loss was the most common symptom of Alzheimer's, I would say most of you would probably say yes. And that's kind of the first thing that pops into people's minds. But it's much more than memory loss. And it's even more than like short-term memory loss. It will start to impact long-term memory as well. So first, memory loss that disrupts daily life. And this one can often be seen and was seen in my mom as someone who was not remembering things from day to day, sometimes even minute to minute. And for people, you may have known these folks who repeat themselves over and over and over again. That is very typical of Alzheimer's dementia. These individuals can also have trouble with challenges in planning and problem solving. And so it's not uncommon that I will talk to folks who say the first time they realized that mom was really struggling was when her electricity was turned off. And that's related to mom's inability to manage her finances, to even handle mail and do some simple banking things that she just is not able to process and plan and kind of sequence how to manage that piece of her life. And these are particularly concerning too. I think I'd like to bring up that when we're talking about these, these represent a change. Like if a person has never been any good at balancing a checkbook and was always paying their bills late and things like that, we don't worry about them as much as if this individual, for instance, was a bookkeeper or an accountant and they're no longer able to do these things. Number 3 is difficulty completing familiar tasks. You can see this a lot in a person's ability to just kind of manage the day-to-day challenges at home. And so, for instance, with my mom, it might have been something as simple as washing dishes, but forgetting to put soap in the dishwasher or use soap when she was hand washing. It is not uncommon that a person might put their laundry, they need to wash the laundry, but instead they put it in the dryer instead of the washing machine, and they forget to use soap. So little kind of more subtle things like that. And I also just want to say right now, I don't want you to be too worried about the stuff that I'm talking about because we all have these moments and these blips. I have washed my laundry before, but not remembered to put laundry soap in. So don't get too freaked out as I'm talking about these things. Confusion with time or place. I personally have driven past my own home before, and that had a whole lot more to do with me just being focused on other things and not really paying attention to where I was. I was distracted in those moments. But we see with people with Alzheimer's that there is a more pronounced confusion with time or place. And so they may not be able to find home. You know, I was able to, when I realized I had driven past my house, I just turned around and went back. But a person with dementia may or may not be able to do that. They may be confused about even where they are. They may think that the home that they're in is not theirs. So it's a much more pronounced issue than just kind of the daily things that we deal with. Number 5 is really fascinating to me, but people with Alzheimer's will have challenges and changes with their vision. And so we know as we age that our peripheral vision does narrow. That's fairly typical and normal aging, but a person with Alzheimer's will experience that at a more rapid rate. And so by the time they are late stage in their disease, it's like they are looking through binoculars, or even maybe they have what we would call monocular vision, where they're only seeing from one small space. And so you can imagine this is creating challenges for them and their ability to navigate and even do something as simple as eat, because they may not see the plate that is right in front of them. It may be just out of their field of vision. Number 6 is new problems with words and speaking or writing. I've seen this manifest in individuals in that they couldn't come up with a simple word. You know, I might ask you, I might show you a cup of coffee or just a mug, a cup. and I would ask you, so what is this? Explain, tell me what this is called. And a person with Alzheimer's may have a really hard time thinking of the word mug or cup, but they might describe it to me. Number 7, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. Again, don't worry about this. We all do it. I actually last night went out to dinner and realized I did not have my cell phone or my glasses. Thankfully, I was with a friend, so it was all good. But I was able to backtrack and say, oh, they have to be at home because that's the only place I've been. But a person with Alzheimer's, they're not going to be able to backtrack. They're not going to be able to remember, oh, I just did XYZ. And so my cell phone must be in the kitchen because that's the only place that I've been. We see in number 8, decreased or poor judgment. One of my favorite examples of this was a client we had many years ago. Her mom had Alzheimer's and lived in a more rural area. I think she was out in Parker County. And the daughter went to visit her mother one day, and her mother, who was single, lived alone out in a remote area, had purchased a side of beef. And for folks who know anything about a side of beef is huge. A single person probably does not need a side of beef. And it turns out for this lady, she didn't even have a place to store it. Like, you need a deep freeze or 2 in your garage to store that meat. And so even though in the moment that woman who was living with Alzheimer's thought it makes sense for me to buy a side of beef, she was reflecting that she had decreased or poor judgment in that moment. We also see individuals who will show a withdrawal from work and social activities. My mom, a great example of this. I grew up in church. We went to church 3 times a week. And then my mom would go Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock for ladies' Bible class. And so she started to withdraw from those activities. I think some of it was because she was forgetting them, but also I think she was becoming uncomfortable in those social settings, maybe forgetting who people were. And so over time, she was withdrawing. And then we can also see, truthfully, for good or bad, changes in mood and personality. People who were just sweet and sunny and happy all the time may be pretty cranky. But I've also known of people who had been really cranky all their lives and who actually kind of got a little nicer as their dementia progressed. So I have seen it go both ways. I think they almost forget what they're mad at, and those grudges and those bad memories that they held so close have dissolved, and they've actually gotten a little nicer as their dementia has progressed. So specific to Alzheimer's disease, what we know is happening is there is an abnormal buildup of what we call plaques and tangles. And I'll talk about that a little more in depth in a minute. But you will notice on the left side of the screen, that is a healthy, normal brain. And over time, Alzheimer's disease literally is killing brain cells. And as those brain cells die, they are just sloughing off. And you will notice on the right side that there are changes occurring in that brain. So the most obvious thing I think is the shrinkage, but also there are actually even some changes in color and structure. And the dementia will start to impact really every part of the brain. Alzheimer's disease is considered to be a fatal illness. And that makes sense because our brain controls everything in our body. And so as our brains are changing and experiencing that cell death, it will start to impact everything. And in late stage, the heart is no longer able to regulate itself. And so the heart is failing, and the body is not able to regulate breathing in the same way that it was previously. And so eventually, Alzheimer's disease does cause death. So what are the causes of Alzheimer's? And truthfully, that's still a big unknown, but more research is really pointing to that it's probably not just any one thing. So often we're looking for cause and effect. We are looking for one cause that causes Alzheimer's disease. And we see now that there are probably a lot of things that are impacting a person's risk for developing Alzheimer's. So what we do see in the Alzheimer's brain is there is a buildup of plaques and tangles. So in a really simple way, what we're seeing is these plaques and tangles are referring to an abnormal buildup of a naturally occurring protein. Our body needs protein. All different parts of our body use different kinds of proteins. There are many different kinds of proteins. And so these are naturally occurring proteins that our body needs. But for some reason in the Alzheimer's brain, instead of the body using them and then disposing of them and clearing them out, they start to build up in the brain, they clump together, and they cause cell death. So the single greatest risk factor that we know of for Alzheimer's disease is actually just advancing age. And so the older we get, the more likely we are to see Alzheimer's develop. There is certainly an aspect of it that is tied to family history. We have seen and known of people who maybe 6 out of the 8 siblings develop Alzheimer's. Your risk is higher if you have a first degree relative who has Alzheimer's. And so when I say first degree relative, I'm referring to an individual who either a parent or a sibling has Alzheimer's. So that's going to put you at higher risk. And then in some cases, although these are fairly rare, there's actually a genetic mutation that is causing the Alzheimer's. And there's actually a family, I believe I know it's in South America, I believe it's Colombia, where there's a lot of research that's been done with this specific family, because pretty much everybody in this village is related somehow. And there is people are developing Alzheimer's disease at very, very high rates, and they tend to develop it earlier in life. So some people will say, well, there's really nothing you can do about Alzheimer's or any dementia, so why even get a diagnosis? I've even heard of the doctors say, there's really no need to diagnose it, or, I don't think you should tell your loved one that you have that they have dementia because or Alzheimer's, because it's just going to make them sad, or it's going to make them depressed. And so, the first thing I would say is, I don't know of any other illness or disease that we would say, yeah, let's not get a diagnosis, because there's really nothing we could do. We want to know what's at the root of these cognitive changes. We want to know if there are things that we can do about it, and we want to be able to plan ahead. So I personally think that there are great benefits to seeking a diagnosis and to getting an early diagnosis. And one of the reasons is too, if a person with the dementia can help plan, can talk about, hey, when I reach a point where I'm no longer able to share with you my desires, let's talk about that now, and let's do some advanced care planning in partnership with Strip Matter Wealth Management, or whoever your financial services planner might be, and also legal planning. So it's not just financial, but the legal planning is extremely important and needs to be done early, because people with dementia will reach a point where they do not have, in legal terms, the competency to make those decisions. It's also really helpful for early detection, because then that helps you to build a relationship with your care team. Some people may learn to really depend on the pharmacist, but also the physician. Also, within the physician's office are their social workers, or there is even now a new term that you may have heard, a dementia care navigation provider. So there are some things that we can really dig into and that are going to hopefully set you up as well as your caregiver for success as things progress. We've already talked about legal and financial planning, but also grow a support team. Now is the time to talk to family, to talk to friends. Maybe, the church family is going to be really integral in helping on this journey. And so again, now is the time to start looking at and thinking about these things. And then I also personally believe that education for many people, education is as important as medication. Education helps you to know, oh, this is fairly typical in the progression of Alzheimer's or a related dementia. Education in how we work with and meet the needs of our loved ones can also be more valuable than medication. Not to say that medication is not helpful and beneficial for many people, but that education and that learning to meet our loved ones where they are, to go with the flow, is incredibly important. I do want to talk for just a minute about the medications and what is on the market, and particularly the new treatments that are available. So there are some medications that have been on the market for over 20 years. And those medications are the ones listed at the top of this slide. And you probably have heard of them. If I flip through a magazine or I'm even watching TV, sometimes I will see these medications advertised. And so the top medications help with symptoms and symptom management. These medications technically do not slow the progression of Alzheimer's. They don't impact the disease itself. They impact symptoms. And so for some people, if these medications are taken early, they will see a benefit. They may see improved cognition. They may see a slightly elevated mood and are just generally able to function better. But now, for the first time, about 3 or 4 years ago, we started to see some new medications that hit the pipeline. And those medications are anti-amyloid treatments. They have received FDA approval, and they actually are able to cross the blood-brain barrier and go into the brain and help to clear out. I mentioned earlier the proteins that are building up. They help clear out some of the protein. And so for some people, if they take the meds, if we catch this early, those medications are really showing benefit. And so that's another reason for early detection and then early treatment. So the two that are currently on the market are the bottom two. So Leqembi and Kisunla. They work in a similar fashion in that they're helping to clear out that abnormal buildup of protein. Now, what we don't have at this point is we don't have a lot of long-term data on the benefits, but the short-term data is positive. And the good news is that there are more medications in the pipeline. And it seems like the newer ones are also seeming to show fewer side effects. The cost has come down on these. And so I want you to know these are not the be all end all. They don't prevent, they don't cure it, but there's great promise. And the nice thing again is that there are other medications in the pipeline. And so we're seeing a lot of positive benefits for people who are in the early stage of their Alzheimer's. So it's also important for you to know that these last two are only approved for people who have Alzheimer's disease that has been diagnosed by a doctor and confirmed by multiple tests. And they're approved for what is called mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's and early stage Alzheimer's. As a person moves into the more moderate stages, these medications have not been approved for that. So let's talk for just a minute. Actually, you know what, Kelly, if you can unmute, are there some questions that might be appropriate to take right now related to the content that I've already covered?
See. I don't see any questions yet.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to keep plowing through.
Guys, you
Um,
have 20 more minutes, so if you have any questions,
Perfect.
go ahead and
Yeah.
put them in there.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Kelly. So let's talk for just a minute about what science says about the brain. We don't know what really is causing the plaques and tangles to build up that lead to the development of Alzheimer's. We don't know necessarily what's at the root of some of the other dementias. But there is more and more information that supports that a healthy life is going to set us up for just better health in general as we age. And so there are some risk factors that we can actually control that may improve our brain health. And increasing some of these healthy habits may lower our risk of cognitive decline and possibly help us prevent dementia. Another really simple thing to know is that if it's good for your heart, it's good for the brain. The more that we take care of our heart, the better it's going to pump oxygen to the brain. And that is necessary for our brains to function properly and for good brain health. And one other thing is it's never too late to start incorporating healthier habits into your lifestyle. So very briefly, what are some of those healthy habits? Some of them you have heard before, but some of these may be new for you. So one of the things is to stay in school, and that does not mean that you need to get more degrees necessarily, although I've literally heard of people in their 80s and 90s going back and getting their doctorates and doing all sorts of interesting things. But there seems to be a real benefit to a structured learning environment, and that could even apply to maybe taking a community college class that via Zoom or something like that. But stay in school and continue to challenge yourself, challenge your mind. I will often have people come up to me at senior centers or other places and say, well, I do, crossword puzzles every day. And that is super. But something that you need to do is continue to challenge yourself. So if you're really good at the crossword puzzles, then maybe learn something new. Try one of the math games and puzzles. But if you're not challenging yourself, if you're doing crosswords every day and they're pretty easy for you, you're not challenging yourself. So you need to learn some new things. They say that some of the things that can be really beneficial and really challenge and work the brain are learning a musical instrument or learning a new language. And those are just working more in different parts of the brain. I also love this next bullet down here on the bottom left, and it says get moving. There is no one on this call that hasn't heard that exercise is beneficial. But I love that we were kind of changing the language around how we talk about some of these things. And we just say get moving. So especially for people that I work with, for my caregivers, you may not be able to go to the gym 3 times a week and do 30 minutes of cardio and strengthening and stretching for another 30 minutes, but pretty much all of us can get moving. And so even sweeping your floor, even doing laundry, raking the yard, those are all ways to get moving. And so I just really encourage folks to be very intentional about what you're doing throughout your day. Maybe as you're doing those things, just turn on a little music and kind of do your little laundry dance, or just move to the rhythm of the music and do things that are going to work your body in ways that are, it's probably not getting worked when you're sitting and watching television. Another one is to eat right. And you've heard that, I suspect. I mean, I've been hearing that for at least 40 or 50 years. and the importance of eating right. And just I like my analogy for that one is that food is like fuel. And so if you really care about your car, you're going to put good fuel in your car. Well, if you care about your body, you're going to put good fuel in your body. Also, another one is to kind of watch our numbers. And so maintaining a healthy weight is beneficial, but also controlling blood pressure, managing diabetes and blood sugar are all really good things. And these are things that can help, your doctor can help you with. And I encourage people to not, because I have a good friend who really tries so hard to eat well. She's very conscious. She has a lot of challenges with her diabetes. And so I don't want her to worry or stress, but I do want her to be intentional about the things that she brings into her body. Another one here, protect your head. I have to share with you that when I first started with the association, we used to have a slide that talked about avoiding head injuries. And I always thought that is so stupid. Like nobody sets out to have a head injury. Nobody wants that. But what it's saying is just make good decisions. Again, be intentional, protect yourself. And so I personally live alone. I do not get up on a ladder without somebody being there. I just am conscious of not doing things that are going to put me at higher risk for hurting myself. Sleeping well is really important. And I suspect probably more than half of the people on this call actually have challenges with that. But here's the thing. There are some things we can do to improve our sleep. And so just to investigate those and to change what we can change. And then lastly, to be smoke-free, we've heard for many, many years about the benefits. And they say that literally, if you've been smoking for 50 years and you stop today, there can be a benefit to that. So what is the Alzheimer's Association doing? How can I help you today? In addition to this education, what are we doing to support caregivers? I mentioned that in 1980 is when we were formed, and we were actually formed, the founder of our organization was a man whose wife had Alzheimer's disease, and he recognized the need for caregiver support. So our 24/7 helpline is the single best tool in your toolbox if you are a caregiver. And that number is answered around the clock because if you're a caregiver, your job does not stop when I go home. I usually leave around 5:15. But for many of you, you may have a loved one who's actually physically living in the house with you. So you don't ever get to really turn off that caregiver switch. Excuse me. So that number, the 24/7 helpline, can be used for a variety of things. But no, the people who staff that line are trained care consultants. They are master's level social workers and counselors, and they provide confidential support. In some cases, people will call us because they have a very specific question or issue. Maybe they're trying to find a doctor in their area, or they're needing someone to come in and help them at home. Some cases, people call us because their loved one has been eloping, escaping from home at night, or maybe dad is now urinating in the kitchen sink instead of the bathroom. So there's just so many things that people call us about, but it's just kind of part of the journey for people who are being impacted by dementia. So please, please, please utilize that 24/7 helpline. Also, we do free education. We will come to your church, to your neighborhood association. We will go almost anywhere. Probably the most unique place I've ever been to do some education was at a bull riding competition in Granbury, and they were hosting it to raise money for the association, but also wanted some education. And then you'll notice here in the right, lower right, We have information on our website about where programming is happening in your area. I suspect we have people who are joining us from Tarrant County as well as outside Tarrant County. But the Alzheimer's Association, because we're national, you can go to a community resource finder right here, and you can find out about support groups in your area. You can get information. We have virtual support groups. You can also find out about education that's happening in person. And then also we have an e-learning portal on our website. I'd like to draw your attention briefly to some of the more special things that we do. Our support groups are for caregivers, not for the person living with dementia. But we even have within our support groups, we have some special groups. We have one for young adults. It's not uncommon for people to be caring for a parent, but also have children at home and be working full time. So our young adult group is for folks who are between the ages of 18 and 40, who may be helping either support a loved one, a parent, or a grandparent. We have a group for people whose loved ones live at home with them, because that's a challenge. If you have a person with dementia who's living with you, they may be underfoot all day, every day, and that can really put some stressors on the caregiver. We have a support group for people whose loved ones live in care facilities. Again, your challenges are different and unique. We have one that is a Spanish language group. So just know if you or have a special need, just call that 800 number and let them help you find a group or a resource that may be beneficial to you. Now, the one thing that I'm really proud of and that piece of my work that I love is an early stage support group. So here in Fort Worth, Tarrant County, I host a group that is for people who have early stage dementia and for their care partners. And we just do a variety of activities. We have education, but we do some really fun stuff as well. And then we break out into support groups. So people with the diagnosis are in a space and able to share confidentially and openly. We have a new program that we launched 2 months ago. It's called In the Moment at the Modern. That is an activity program for people with dementia and their care partners. And you can get information on that on using the community resource finder tool that I just mentioned. I'm going to keep moving because I want us to have opportunity. So I'm going to stop sharing and just open things up and see if we have any questions that I may be able to answer about information that I've covered, or maybe something I didn't cover that folks are curious about.
So far we don't have any questions in the webinar chat.
Okay.
But I will tell guys, their association is just so handy as a caregiver, and I've seen it on both sides of my family. The caregivers often need care and they need help. And so please use their resources if you have someone in your family that is dealing with any stage of Alzheimer's or dementia. And really the people who, what I have found, Shelly, in working with our clients and talking with many potential clients and other family members, it really doesn't, I mean, it gets hard emotionally, it gets hard physically for the caregiver, but it also gets very hard financially for that caregiving family, because oftentimes you have two breadwinners bringing two incomes, and then one has to quit their job to take care. So now they're struggling a bit. And there are ways to offset that, be creative in your planning.
Right.
And then because you mentioned some of this can be hereditary, taking those steps to offset that future risk for yourself.
Right. Yeah, that is so true. And I'll tell you, especially related to the finances, we get calls, people, who are already on this journey, they've been on it a while and they realize, hey, it's probably time for us to, look at moving dad into, memory care now. And so they call about questions about Medicare. It's like, Medicare doesn't cover memory care. Basic insurance, health insurance doesn't cover memory care. And so they're stunned to realize that there's not really a lot of financial help for that. So then, something like a long-term care insurance policy. But they really should have been having those conversations, 10 years ago. So I just encourage people to start talking about stuff now, to make decisions now, and to reach out to us. We have people who call us all the time who aren't being impacted yet, but they just want to get more information. They want to know what to do. We actually have a program that, again, is kind of high level, Kelly, that talks about legal and financial planning. And it's just a broad brush, because two people need to know, like, even state to state, requirements are different in terms of even like legal planning and the proper documents. And I think folks assume that everything is just the same across the board, and it's not. Even county to county, sometimes if you have a loved one who has dementia, and at some point you decide, hey, it's going to be necessary for us to take guardianship. But even different counties and different judges have different opinions of that. And so it's just so beneficial to start talking about this stuff early, to plan and to make decisions as best you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, that is one of the many things that we specialize in over here at Strip Matter, where we are able to have those discussions and do the estate planning and look at how to fund that. Long-term care, there's a variety of types of insurances to use. We can see which one's best for the family and how does it fit in the budget. So anybody today, thank you so much for joining us. And if you want to learn more about your specific financial situation, feel free, use the QR code on the screen, scan that, schedule your complimentary discovery meeting with us, and we'll help you in that aspect. And to learn more about Alzheimer's, please visit the Alzheimer's Association. Also, we do additional webinars on other educational items, and we even teach classes at our local colleges. Strip Matter does. So if you visit our webpage, stripmatterwealth.com, and click on the calendar of events, you'll be able to see that throughout the rest of the year. You can also sign up for our weekly newsletters that talk about the market. We have monthly newsletters that talk about retirement. There's all sorts of wealth of information out there. We're very passionate about educating people. So Shelly, thank you again so much for joining us today. And I'm going to check the chat box one more time.
Okay.
Apparently everybody learned everything they need to know.
Good.
Today.
They know it all.
That's right. So thank you so much, guys. You will all get an emailed copy of this as well.
Okay.
You all have a wonderful day.